another edition of Turned Out a Punk. I'm your host, Damian Abraham, and today on the show, my buddy, my pal, the legend, Lukie Luke, aka Luke Abbey, from the band Gorilla Biscuits, from Warzone, from Moondog, from Alpha Jerk, from Riverboat Gamblers, from not Civ. I don't know where I made that up, that he played in the early incarnation of Civ. That's some like 15-year-old me hearing something, broken telephoning it, and now bring it up on the podcast all these years later. You'll hear all this in a second. Luke is someone that I met. Well, I've met him a few times over the years, and we talk about a time in South by Southwest that we hung out in this episode as well. But we really, I think, for me at least, like hung out heavy in Las Vegas when my wife Lauren and I went down for punk rock bowling and just hung with the Gorilla Biscuits. And that's when I came to the realization that they are like the most fun band ever. Like, not that I didn't know that from listening to the records, but that's when I really accepted it and realized, oh my gosh, this is like my favorite band to hang out with, my favorite group of people. So Luke is someone I've been talking about coming on the show with him since then, and it's taken till now for it to finally happen. And oh boy, I'm glad it has. You'll hear in this, Luke is an amazing person, such a great guy, and this is a very fun conversation. If you are unfamiliar with Luke's work, check out the Gorilla Biscuits. You can find out more information at revelationrecords.com or revhq.com. You can also find their official merch store at evilgreed.com. If you want to check out more information about Warzone, definitely look into Warzone. Check out the album Don't Forget the Struggle, Don't Forget the Streets, which Luke plays on. I feel this is very redundant for most of you, so I apologize. Also, if you have never heard the Moondog stuff, oh my God, check out Moondog, the post Gorilla Biscuits pre-Quicksand band, where Walter started singing. Luke's on bass. And we talk about all this in a second. You're going to hear us wax about this in mere moments. I don't think I have anything left to ramble on about. I don't know if I have any notes for today's episode. So follow Lukie Luke 1 on Instagram, and that's it. Sit back, relax, and enjoy Luke Abbey on Turned Out Luke, welcome to Turned Out a Punk.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. I guess full disclosure, we did try and record this yesterday. Something came up. We didn't get a chance to finish it.
That's right.
But just to bring the audience up to speed, this has been a long time coming, as we talked about yesterday.
Yeah,
I've been
we
a fan of your bands for ever, and then we
uh,
met in Vegas, and it was such a great hang. And I'm
we
glad.
you know we hung out in Vegas, but we also I think the first time we hung out was some show in Austin when I was living there way back. But yes, Vegas was that was a good time for
Yeah,
sure.
Vegas is when it hit me that like, and I mean this in the best possible way, not in any of the accusations about this band being the original industry plant, but
Uh-huh.
Gorilla Biscuits remind me of the Monkees in the sense that you guys are all completely different but amazing fun personalities.
We are definitely an eclectic bunch of dudes in terms of uh basically everything that we do, how we live, what we're into and all that. We come together. We have such a long history with each other and you know, respect, admiration and disdain for each other. It all kind of it's a unique tribe.
Yeah, there's no other band I think I'd want to be in the van with more. And we were just talking about him off air, but I was talking to Patty from Dillinger 4, and he was saying Gorilla Biscuits would be his dream band to roadie with. Or roadie.
Hey, yeah, he's welcome anytime. Any fucking time.
Well, I have a feeling Dillinger 4 will come up another time in this episode as well, but we got to start this off the way they all start off, which is Luke, how'd you get into punk? Do you remember the first time you ever came across it?
Originally, um, I it's kind of a mix of stuff. I was always like I was pretty young, like I was young, uh, you know, Probably like when I really started listening to stuff and getting into it, I was about 12. I was already kind of like I don't know, like sort of like New York miscreant kind of like just like early 80s, everyone kind of just hung out and ran around in the streets and doing stuff and getting into just getting into stuff as New York was like back then and sort of just getting into trouble and hanging out with different scenes and sort of on the fringes of stuff. I was always into music. Uh, I started playing drums around 11, but not like real seriously. Um, but I wasn't playing like hardcore or anything like that. But I was starting to listen to like The Clash, Blondie, Talking Heads, U2, and all of that. And so I was sort of drifting in this way towards there. Um, and I remember there was one area where like everyone would kind of congregate around like after school, this like Blimpies. And so there'd just be like there was like a video game in the back and just kids would just take it over. Like one person would buy a sandwich and there'd be, fucking 40 kids in the back just, you know, causing hell. And there's all these just different people hanging out. And there were these older dudes. I think I was in eighth grade, older guys who were obviously like into punk and stuff, who'd called me over to their table and just started kind of like grilling me. And I don't know if we knew each other. I think all the kids who kind of got into trouble and stuff sort of were familiar with each other. I went to a small, really eclectic school, and everyone kind of knew each other. Even though they were in high school and I was younger, I kind of we were familiar. So they're starting to grill me on everything. Do you know what punk is? Do you know what hardcore is? Can you play the fast beat? All this stuff. And I knew a little bit about it. This girl had given me a tape that had a Sex Pistols record on it and the Minor Threat 7 inches. So I'd listened to them, but um, it was just on a cassette, and I didn't have any records. It was kind of in isolation, and I was really into like U2 and like a little more musical stuff at that point. And they're asking me about it, and I was just really taken with these dudes and enamored with like they looked fucking cool and I knew they were into like wild shit and I was into getting like, into all these different, pockets of craziness I could back then. And yeah, they just were like, "Hey, you should come over, come hang out at our house and play music and check all this out." And so I think that night I went down. They lived kind of near where I lived. Went down where this kid lived, which it was his mother and his older brother and him. They had a whole building, and he had the whole top floor. And like to me, he was like an adult, but he's actually in 10th grade. And so the whole top floor of this building is like his. So it's like his apartment. You know what I mean? And it was like the punk house. And I go in there and we start hanging out, and like they drop just like a fucking stack of records for me. And I just started like listening to everything and looking at all the photos and artwork and everything. And it was, dude, by the next morning, that was everything for me. And I just started hanging out with these guys all the time. I mean, every day, and everything just became hardcore instantly. Just like it switched. And it was funny because this is all happening. I still remember like a few months later, like, and I'm still into like U2 and all this stuff. And I had tickets and I went to see U2 at Radio City later that year. And and I remember kind of not making like to me, U2 is still like these bands are still part of this kind of like thing I'm getting into. And I remember going to that U2 show at Radio City. It was them and the Water Boys. I think it was the end of 1984. And I'm just already starting to like, wear ripped up flannels and, fucking AF written on my fucking, butt flap and everything. And I'm going to Radio City thinking this is going to be like the big punk show. And it's like decidedly not, you know what I mean? Great show. But, Yeah, and I just got into it, man. Just and it just snowballed from there. Within a couple of months, we're playing all the time. We're starting a band. I'm learning how to do everything, and yeah, it was like, I mean, it was like not wading into the pool. It was like somebody fucking like going to the deep end and just dropping me off the high dive, and I went straight to the bottom, and like I didn't come up for a long time,
It's
you
it's
know?
it's funny how it's like the guitar player in my band fucked up when he was on the show described it as like the real red pill. Like you're saying, after you kind of get into hardcore, and I'm getting into
Yeah,
it later, 10 years later, plus years later than you, or 10 years later than you, and it's still that thing where like I went to a few concerts recently and sat down in the seats and was like, I don't know if I'm like four concerts ever
yeah.
now.
Yeah, I never went to concerts. Like that U2 show was by far and away the biggest concert I'd ever been to. And the next actual like concert I went to was going to see fucking like Ozfest in '97. Like I've only been to a couple of like actual, like my whole growing up was just shows. Like that was it. You know what I mean? So um yeah, no, I agree. It's a different experience. I mean, now I appreciate it more, obviously. Um, it's kind of nice to kind of kick back in a seat sometimes. But no, it's yeah, I mean, like back then, I mean, I wouldn't have I mean, no comparison at all.
Yeah, I know it. I don't know. I went and I was kicking back in that seat, and then I went to like a hardcore show a few days later, and it was a really small, tiny show, and I was just like, I think this is more my vibe than the concert to this
Yeah.
day. And but it's funny you getting into it so young, given our conversation before we got on here, versus kids today, where it's
Yes.
you. I could not imagine letting my 11-year-old go anywhere.
No, like I've got three kids, and so I think about, for me, my memories of getting into hardcore back then and diving into it are really good. Because I mean, it was like so special to me. You know what I mean? It really changed everything for me. At the same time, that I was kind of in a position that hardcore became this sort of like savior to me. As a parent now, there's something a little hardcore was different back then. It was not like, it was like you had to kind of dig. Like, I mean, people have talked about this forever, but you kind of had to dig. You're not going to the safest area. You're not hanging out with the most savory people at the outset. And so for a 12, 13-year-old kid to like go head first into that world as a parent now is like, you know, maybe it wasn't, I mean, it seemed like the right thing for me to do, but at that time, um, again, it's a little bit of a mix. There's a little bit of a mixed story in there. You know what I mean?
Definitely, and I think without getting too much into the mixed story part now, but it feels like you talked about it. There's a lot of other dangerous things you could have found yourself into in New York City at that
For
time.
sure. Oh, I did. Oh, don't worry. I found them all.
Well, I wanted to ask you, and this has been put into the public record, but you were a graffiti writer too, right?
I got really into graffiti, like before getting into punk and stuff. Um, and yeah, I was young, and again, that was sort of like what a lot of the guys I was hanging out with around neighborhoods and stuff were doing and getting into, and it's what I got into. And I really um I mean, I did it when I was much younger, and then I had a little bit of a time later on where I got sort of back into it, but just kind of like tangentially, and that was really it. But when I was really into it, I was much younger, but I was yeah, that's kind of sketchy stuff for a little kid too. And for me it was just like an adventure. It's like going to an amusement park. I mean, you know, uh it's kind of hard to it's kind of hard to like just to extol the virtues of writing graffiti. But when you're a little kid, man, and running around fucking New York City, 2 in the morning, like, like climbing buildings and shit and running through tunnels, it's like, man, it's the most fun stuff in the world, for a certain group of people. It's just an adventure. You're like Goonies, you know?
Though
Uh,
I grew up at a time when you had to go to the public library, the Toronto Reference Library, to see Style Wars. Like,
yes,
and
yes.
and
Well,
they
that Star Wars is, pretty. I mean, that's that's mandatory viewing, I think. You know what I mean? Even back then, I mean, that I remember. Yeah, I think I still have a VHS of it. Like somebody recorded off a PBS way back when or whatever. Um, but yeah, no, I was so yeah, I got way into graffiti and all the stuff that goes with that. I was never really into all the bullshit that went on with it, all like I'm not much of a fighter or anything or into all the beefs and whatnot, but no, I was super into it for a long time. And through those kind of scenes you connect with uh back then, like early 80s, all those kind of scenes, there was this just big like overlap of everything. Everyone, all kind of graffiti shit and punk and hardcore and just alternative, just different different stuff. Everybody kind of just it was all just kind of one big scene with all these different little like offshoots and stuff.
we
So
yeah, because
yeah.
you're kind of like once again, I guess this is Style Wars documenting it to me from an outsider's perspective. It's like the tail end of like a golden age for graffiti in that city too.
Yeah, I mean, well, when when they stopped when they switched up all the subway cars, that was a big thing. I mean, I never got as into, I was way more into streets, as you would call it. Um, but switching up trains was a big thing. Giuliani coming in was huge. Um, I don't know. Things just changed. New York changed. I mean, I don't know. I got out of it. Like I got out of it when I started really getting into hardcore and playing like a little more seriously. And this is a little later than just getting into it. It was I just kind of fell back out of it. I wasn't really hanging out with the same guys as much, before I'd been hanging out with a bunch of like writers and stuff in my neighborhood a lot. And then it just became, I was exclusively just playing and going to shows and whatever.
I think Freddie Alva's done a really amazing job in sort of showing the world this, but there's like this real deep intersection between, like you said, hardcore and
Absolutely.
graffiti.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's not like, and it's not, I mean, to me, a lot of that stuff is not even like there's different styles and different sounds, but it's all coming from the same place. And it's, I mean, there's a lot of people who are all into, hip hop culture and all that, who are just as into hardcore and vice versa. You know what I mean? It's not like really that much of a stretch, um, to me. And I'm not even thinking of it cerebrally. Just it's you dig it. You know what I mean? Like I've never really gotten into things that I don't personally, like I don't have a personal affinity for, or like, that doesn't appeal to me. You know what I mean? It's not like I wasn't like it's not like you're trying to, oh, hip hop and hardcore should go together. It's just no, you like them both, or you don't.
Yeah, and I think that's also a function of New York and the geography of that being so small and everyone,
For
you know,
sure.
crammed together like that.
Oh, for sure. I mean, everyone's in the same, everyone's just in the same place, or you're literally in the same areas doing different things, and it's all just kind of spilling over onto each other. So it's I mean, it's very organic, I think. There's no people aren't driving to a certain area. You know what I mean? It's just everyone's, fucking on foot or subway or, whatever, riding their bike. And so it's all just, you're just exposed to it a lot and all the time. And then when you're hanging out, you're just hanging out in neighborhoods and it's the same thing. It's not like, It's not quite as like sectioned off and compartmentalized as shit most other cities, to be honest, I think.
Yeah, and I think it was Roger when he was on the podcast talked about like the fact that you had people in the same building like across from you that you don't have any relationship to, but you have to live with them. It's not
Yeah.
spread out in the way that like your neighbor is your basically your roommate more or less because of everyone living in apartments.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean New York is you know, I mean I mean I moved out of New York quite a while ago. And obviously the city's different, but I mean, no, I mean everyone's just in it together, you know what I mean? It's not New York is unique that way. You know what I mean? In a good way.
Yeah, and I think it
It's
affects. I think in punk and hardcore you see it because it explains why you can have a nausea and a YDL existing in the same scene, which you probably wouldn't see any other place.
Yeah, people do not have quite the same hangups because I think it's, a pretty natural thing. You're around this stuff, you're around different stuff all the time and you're interacting with it all the time and so I mean essentially it's part of your life, you know? And I mean, not might not be what you're taking part in, but this is all around you, and you're starting to, and the more you're interacting with, people, the more you're finding different whatever commonalities, or even just like, you know, just general like, hey, how you doing bullshit, So it's like it's not so it's just not so divided. It's just and I think the New York scene was always very like laid back and accepting for the most part uh up until sort of like mid late 80s about like it just kind of like grew. I mean, I wasn't around in the early days, but it wasn't like this, it just kind of like grew up organically, kind of, you know what I mean? And so there's people just migrating into it from all areas, and just into different shit.
Yeah, and
um
it seems very much like what happens in LA too. There's like almost like a hardening as it goes from punk to hardcore.
Yeah, and you know what? Also, I mean, New York too is just kind of like it's I think, and I just think generally, even people in New York who weren't into hardcore, or whatever, people who live in New York are pretty used to like just like all levels of fucking weirdness and whatever going on around them all the time. So it's not like, all of a sudden, wow, there's, guys with crazy haircuts over here by the country club. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just another fucking, and just another group of wackos over there. You know what I mean? And the next block, there'll be some other wacky shit going on. So there's not quite that like shock value. It just kind of fits in with everything,
Yeah, you're right. I never really thought about that, but like, and I guess it gets more sensationalized a little bit later on, where there's that New York article, or there's an article, and then there's the Donahue, New York
Right.
hardcore Donahue episode. But like, I imagine
There's
the
enough
cop.
going on. People are trying to, what's that?
Yeah, exactly. And I imagine the cops there were like, "Well, good luck to the punks. Like, you got to survive in this city." Whereas in LA, it was a threat.
Yeah, I think it was. I mean, from my understanding of like the sort of tensions between cops and like punk kids and stuff in LA, that was like for real. I think New York was way more like, cops were more just like, you guys are a bunch of fucking jerks. You know what I mean? Like, like I got no time for this bullshit. Like it was not. I think there was definitely it was a lot more contentious and violent out on the West Coast with that kind of stuff. You know, Again, same thing. New York cops. I mean, it's like the guy with the mohawk is like nothing compared to the fucking lunatic who's doing this or that around the corner or whatever.
Were those guys you met in Blimpies that day the loud and boisterous people?
Yes, they were like two of them. We were yes, they were like the two main dudes. And yeah, so that's the band we started this band. I think they already had the name for the band. And So yeah, we started playing pretty hard. It was this guy Mike, and then singer was singer was older. Singer was like 4 or 5 years older than me. And I kind of know him because he wrote. He was a big writer. He was actually really good. And so him and I actually connected like writing graffiti too. And he was a interesting wild dude. Um but Yeah, so those are the guys I started playing with, and yeah, we started this band Loud and Boisterous. It was very like you know, I think in retrospect, I thought it was the greatest thing in the world. We played very few shows, but we played all the time. We played a ton of shows at Mike's house upstairs, you know. But it was great. That was like my first so when I'm getting into hardcore and getting into punk, like actually like learning it, I'm also playing it at the same time. So as I'm getting into it and learning and seeing these bands for the first time, I'm also instantly starting a band and playing. So it's all happening at once. Um, so like I learned how to play drums essentially through, you know, hardcore, like these kind of things. So like when you break it back down, like that's almost my fucking like real musical roots, you know. But no, the band we yeah, that was the band, Loud and Boisterous. It was myself and those two guys, and then there were a few other people that came in and out here and there.
The song on the Urban Styles mixtape is awesome.
It's so I don't I felt, a guy from that uh I think the what's the label? Radio Raheem,
Yeah, was it
I want to
Rich
say.
or Cooch?
Rich, I think his name is. I'm not sure. He'd gotten in touch with me a while ago because we put out a demo tape, and he was asking me about like doing a release of it. And my recollection of it is it's not good. That's, I mean, that's coming from me, but also just like fucking demo tape. I don't want to like it was we played a handful of shows. It was not like we never really made it into the scene with things. You know what I mean? We played a few shows. We played with Straight Ahead at their very first show, which was really cool. Um, which was a whole new thing for me. That's a little later on, and then that fucking sets me on a whole new trajectory once I see those guys. But no, we it was we played a lot. Those dudes who I played with in that band, they didn't go to a lot of shows. They had gone to a lot of shows earlier on, but they weren't like super into going to shows. Which is something that once I started going to, I was like, the fuck is wrong with you guys? Why are we not at every show? You know what I mean? Which I started going to every fucking show on every Sunday, not getting into 90% of them. But so that was kind of the thing. It became this thing. We played a lot, but we never really played out too much. They were um they were they were they were like the anti-punk punks. You know what I mean? There's always, you know what I mean? Like they were just kind of like not as gung ho as I was at that point. Um,
Burnt out. They're over it.
yeah, maybe a little bit, or maybe just not as they were maybe just not as into it. I'm not really sure. You know what I mean? I was, I at that point, man, I really, really did. I tried like talking about it, I'm trying to think back on stuff, and I have a lot of tunnel vision from that time because I mean, I was really like it was just it was just hardcore. And how do I like how do I get to the like I want my entire life to be the skank part. I want that feeling of the skank part coming in 24 hours a day. That's what I want my life to be. And that's what I was going for. And if you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
figuratively speaking, it was so good for me. And like so yeah, that band was fun. Definitely was my like sort of like transition from like learning about getting into everything to being like this is my life. But we all kind of grew out of it together. Eventually those dudes started some of those guys started getting into some like pretty heavy drug stuff while I was starting to fucking, put big black X's on my hands and run around and shit. And it was, it ran its course.
Who would you guys play with? Like, would you play with other bands, or is it just like parties where people are
Dude,
coming
we
over?
did like, we played,
Other than Straight Ahead, I mean.
we, yeah, I mean, the only shows I really remember we did played with a band. Like it wasn't the last show, the very last show we played was, we opened a show with us and who was it? Us and the Hoods and Sick of It All and Token Entry. So that was like, but by that time I had already become like friends with a lot of guys, like band guys and like Youth Today guys and all that. So I was already kind of like, you know, like I remember playing that show and just being like, you know, because but it's like we were very dated back then. We were singing about like Union Carbide and like nuclear explosions in Kiev. You know what I mean? Whereas I'm now getting more into fucking Spirit of Youth and Me You Youth Crew. So I remember going to play that show, and it's like I remember like all those dudes are there and all my friends are there who I'm like now hanging out with, and it was a little awkward. And that was it. That was our last show. But we only did a few shows altogether, um over that whole course of time,
It's interesting because it's like what just judging by that one song, it does have this like real kind of New York sound that I think almost is like in this like lean period pre obviously the youth crew explosion kind of happening, but like post victim in pain pre youth crew thing.
Yes. I mean it was we were definitely into it. I was like that was more like what were bands like we listened to lots of like those dudes were really into Cause for Alarm. We listened to that band Bedlam. You ever get into Bedlam
Love
from New
them.
Jersey?
Yeah, buy
So
our
that was
records.
like yes, okay. So like that kind of like Damage, like it was kind of like this. It was a little more like raw, like noisy-ish, but still kind of hardcore. And granted, it's like I'm learning how to play drums as we're going, so it's all like it might sound like this and might sound like that, but it's kind of like sort of throwing darts at how it's going to come out because I've only got so much control of what I'm doing at this point. um but that was sort of like our Reagan Youth, these kind of band, like that was more like kind of the thing, like uh lightning fast lyrics, can't understand anything. It's like listening to Victim in Pain the first time. You're like, excuse me, what? I need the same thing. Like I'm gonna fit like 900 words into a 2-second line kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, there's
um
it, it's so cool in New York too because like you're saying there's so many different variations on this style. Like there's like
yes.
the noisier things and like going to all these different shows at that time, are you seeing like what kind of stuff are you seeing? Are you seeing like
Oh,
all sorts of stuff?
shows before, uh like shows, I think, like I mean even later into the 80s, but earlier shows it was way more eclectic as far as who was going to be playing. You know what I mean? Because everybody, like, it was just people weren't so it wasn't so pigeonholed. There wasn't these like sort of skinhead bands and the harder bands and metally bands and straight edge bands. It was just it was still kind of growing. So every if your guitar is a little, you got Sonic Youth, you got all these kind of different sounds and everything coming into it because it's all within that same sort of palette. You know what I mean? And where they're all going to sort of congeal, that takes a little time. You know what I mean? You get these other kind of scenes, but initially it's like initially you're getting just a lot more variety in everything, and that's and there's a lot of like I probably saw a lot of bands that probably had some kind of influence on maybe what I was doing, or maybe informed a little bit of something, but that I wasn't like really into. I wasn't going to buy the record. I wasn't like, like listening to over and over and over and over. So but yeah, I mean it's all, and then it's kind of like, I mean it's all connected. So maybe one of these bands, you know, influences, a band you're really into, and they start doing something. So you might not be a direct derivative of getting this, but you're getting it somehow. It's all getting in there together.
Well, it's funny. A couple years ago, or like more like 10 years ago now, I was in Florida and I went to this record store and I bought a comp, and it's like a Glenn Branca, um, like freeform comp LP where like each artist does like a 15-second song, and
Yeah.
Thurston Moore's song is called Youth of Today.
I
And it would have
love
been
it.
like 83 this is coming out. And I asked, Ray and Porcello about it. They had no idea about
No
that
idea.
comp. And
Yeah.
Thurston was like, "Oh, I didn't even think about that." But yeah, that's weird.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I like, it, I think theoretically, I like having the variety of all these bands, or I like being able to see it. I think after a while, we're also talking, you know, pretty young, like the height of fucking adolescence. And when you like what you like at that point, and you discover what you like, it's like, yeah, I could either have one of everything, or I could have fucking five of what I really like. That's kind of where I started heading with a lot of stuff. And I think a lot of people did, you know what I mean? And I think that's something that ended up happening um, with a lot of bands in the scene. And then I think also a lot of the people who are doing sort of more tangential shit. It's kind of like, it's not really, we don't really want to take part in this anymore. It's kind of like a mutual, like, yeah, like parting of the ways. And so you're left with, you're left with something else, that might be like, you know, just the protein, but you're missing you need your other vegetables too to make a complete meal.
Yeah, like I think that's why later on when there's all these bands that are trying to be quote unquote youth crew bands, it's not going to sound like the first wave of youth crew stuff because it's these people were weaned on youth crew and
Right.
they don't weren't weaned on all this different stuff, and then just like you're saying, distilling it down to like what we like, and that's what this is.
Right. I think it's a pretty common trend of things happening like that. It's like, it's something new that, something new is created out of like sort of like original ideas, coupled and mixed with influences. And so you have something new, and then you have the next sort of segment that is going directly off of that product or whatever those people have come up with. So it's not, they're not getting those other influences. They're not hearing how those people were informed by it. You know what I mean? It's like they're only going it's going back to the original stuff, I think is always, um, I mean, is always important. I think in creating music or writing music, because I don't know, that's just the way I feel. So it's more of a sort of adaptation or innovation or evolution of something, as opposed to just like an imitation. And there's nothing wrong with imitate. There's nothing wrong with, hey, that fucking band is amazing, I want to do the same thing. It's just. Um, I mean, at least in New York, I remember, everything was just way more, you know, it was way more diverse. And so I know that was a bit of a bummer for a lot of people when things started to get a little monolithic that way.
Yeah, and I think the failure to copy the thing is also where innovation comes in, right?
Sure.
Like, oh, we're gonna sound just like Judge, and but like they're missing that a weird, not weird, but that amazing emotional component that Mike
Yes.
brings to it. So it's not going to sound like Judge. It's still going to be awesome in its own way, but it's never going to be the thing because it doesn't have that exact makeup, like you're saying.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, in the end, man, I think, any band that's gonna, or music or anything that you're doing that's going to sort of endure or have any like lasting value, there's got to be something more than that, because after a while, you know, it's like fucking fruit stripe gum or something. It's like the flavor goes away quick, and then you just got, fucking wad of rubber in your mouth. You know what I mean? It's like there's not. It's like, okay, wow, those are awesome parts. They sound just like that band. You know what I mean? I don't know. You want something more, you know?
So when you're going to shows outside of Loud and Boisterous shows, like where are you going? CB's mainly, or the Mud Club? Is that still?
No, no, no. That Mud Club is gone by that point. I mean, I didn't even, that wasn't on my radar ever. I was going to shows at CB's, and I started getting kicked out of CB's. CB's had a very strict 16 and over policy, which I was not really aware of going there the first time. And I got the very first time I went to CB's, I got kicked out. I don't even know how many times in one day, mind you. And by the end of the day, this lady Karen, who was Hilly Kristal's wife, Karen Kristal, she was like the demon overlord of Sunday matinees, and like her greatest, as far as I'm concerned, her greatest thrill in life was denying kids entry to fucking CBs on Sundays. um by the end of the first time I went there, she she came over to me and told me, you will never get into this club, like. And I'm, dude, like, and it's just like, okay, fuck, because I just discovered the place I want to spend my whole life. And like, now I've basically got to fight like the final boss every Sunday now for the next fucking 3.5 years or whatever. Um, and so I still went to shows at CB's. I got in a lot. I didn't get in just as much. Um, I've snuck in a bunch. I've had to have, fucking this dude pretend he's this guy or whatever. But none of this could ever happen when she was there, because, I mean, I was like, there was essentially a fucking, wanted poster, like, for me, Um, so I went to shows there. There weren't many all ages shows in New York. I would go out to shows in Long Island when I could, Connecticut, Jersey, like wherever, like kind of wherever I could get to. A lot of times it's getting on the railroad, you know what I mean, or something, or, you know, don't really at this point have many friends who have cars or driving. Um, so it was definitely it was fucking cat and mouse, man, for me for a number of years growing up, with all that stuff. And I looked, a lot of my friends, even that were young, get a fake ID or whatever. It's like I needed a fucking fake ID to look my actual age back then. Like, you know, I was I was like 12 going on 8,
Yeah,
trying to get into a 16 and over club, you know.
yeah. I can imagine it'd be difficult back then too.
Yeah, it was tough. It was tough, and it was frustrating a lot, but I mean, I made it.
Did you have friends going with you, or are you going by yourself to all these things?
So it was weird, man. So I was kind of, I mean, I've always been a bit of a loner in that regard. So for a long time I was going to stuff by myself. And I would meet people there and stuff, but it was kind of like I just kind of like bounced around to different little kind of like dudes hanging out and scenes around in front of the club and everything. So I went to a lot by myself. By the time like 86 rolled around, I hung out a lot with my friend Eric, who was the guitar player from Side by Side, um, and had played in that, ended up playing in that band, Loud and Boisterous, with me. And he was a couple of years older, and so we rolled around together a lot that summer. But and then by the end of '86, I had become friends with a lot more people who were like regularly going to shows all the time. And so kind of I sort of transitioned out of like my scene with dudes in Brooklyn, Loud and Boisterous, that whole kind of thing, into like the more like the major leagues.
And Eric Fink, of course, would also wind up playing an uppercut and side.
Yes. We had known each other since we were like little kids. And we went to school together, and so I'd known him forever. Yeah, so like yeah, anyway, yeah, I'm sorry, you were saying?
Well, he's also a future member of Bloodline, not New Jersey Bloodline, Minnesota Bloodline, which
Yes.
featured Eric Funk from
Yes.
D4. That's the payoff for the other mention of D4 I had planned.
Yeah, 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 there you go. There you go. No, I've had like pretty much every there was the first couple of times I met all those guys, there was all those conversations about Eric Fink and Eric Funk.
Um, so when you're going to these shows by yourself at CB's, like, or even with Eric, was there any that stand out to you that fuck that would have been the best show to see all these years later that you weren't
Uh
allowed in to see that you had to kind of watch from the street corner?
so no, so yeah, completely. The okay, so the show that was it was AF, Underdog, and Warzone. I think it was August of '86, and I got kicked out instantly. And I stood in the little vestibule for that whole one. And I've actually got both those. I don't have the AF set. I've got the other sets on tape. Um, that was that was one show I remember being like, "Fuck, man! Like, come on!" Hearing it from, it's like, it's it's summertime, so it's a good time to not get into a show there because CBs would get so fucking hot a lot of time. They just keep the door open, and you can kind of see like a little bit way in the fucking back. But no, that was one I was really bummed out that I didn't get into. Um, yeah, of probably a few more. I don't remember all the other ones. I mean, a lot of the time it was not the same thing, but just going and hanging out at the shows was like, that was great. I loved it. You know what I mean? So even if I'm not getting in necessarily, I'm I'm with everybody I want to be around, and I'm like in the middle of it. You know what I mean? Anyway, it's one step down from doing exactly what I was hoping to do.
Well, like you were saying with Loud and Boisterous, like the social component is such a huge part of being a punk and hardcore band.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, the I don't know. That just that feeling, that kind of eclectic group of people, man, of hanging. It was so much fun, man. It just felt so like just the social aspect of it, like you said, the hanging out and just being with your friends and goofing off, and I mean I mean, when you're a kid, I mean, like hanging out with your friends and doing, is it's everything. I mean, maybe not everything, but it's really important, you know? And so if you're hanging out with all these interesting people who are all into cool this cool scene. And I mean, I was super happy doing that. And I knew I'd be 16 at a certain point.
Well, yeah, like I feel like the movie. I feel like sorry the. I feel like that New York period for me is beautifully book ended by on one side you have Style Wars, on the other side you have Kids as sort of like you're saying it's like Goonies but like the scary adult version of
Yes.
Goonies.
Yes. Yeah. Um Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on in New York, and it's like, uh, I mean, it's at the moment when it's all happening. I mean, not necessarily paying attention to it in the same way. You're just kind of living it. Um, looking back on it all. It all seems a little more like ordered, like, like this era, this era, this era. I can personally, I go by just sort of like, my own phases. I had like a period of time where I was learning about everything and just getting into it. And then I had this other sort of section where like it's just, like I'm really getting into it, but breaking away from like my first sort of experiences, and then once I started like playing in real bands, not real bands, but doing more, you know what I mean? And playing in bands that were really part of stuff. I mean, then that's just a whole another step up too. Because I mean, up through '86, I mean, even playing in Loud and Boisterous, I'm not really playing, in show. I'm not really playing shows, and it's all I fucking want to do. You know what I mean? Like I just want like anytime I see a band, I'm just thinking like, oh my God, that part in like this LAB song would be so fucking good when it came in here. People would go crazy, and like like I want to be the guy making that shit happen. You know what I mean? Like I want to be part of the whole thing, but I really want to do it. And so yeah, so once I got into bands and started doing that, then it was just like, you know, from fucking Sanka to fucking quad fucking lattes.
What was the first time you played CBs?
My first CB show was with Warzone. It was April '87.
That must have
So
felt like a
it was
victory.
fucking amazing. It was that's a good that's a good word for it. It was total victory. It was really cool too, man. That was so that period of time from like from that like near the end of '86, I remember I went to there's that club, the Anthrax in Connecticut, and they originally were in Stamford, which I never went there, and then they moved to Norwalk, and I went for the first show, the opening night of the new Anthrax show, um, and that was I want to say it was like maybe September '86, somewhere around there. It was all like Connecticut, like Seizure, 76% Uncertain. It was all like Connecticut bands playing, and I went with this girl from my school, and that night, I remember because I still remember I had like flight jacket and I had fucking boots on and everything. And I had already seen like Youth of Today and Crippled Youth and those dudes play, but I didn't know those guys. Um, but I was also, super into all the straight edge shit going on. And I met those guys that night, and they were all like the height of fucking football jersey, style. And they sort of were like, hey, what are you doing? Fucking come with us. And basically just kind of like, we're going to fucking get pizza. And they kind of just like grabbed me, and like I just rolled with them that night. You know what I mean? And like I ended up like, so I went, got pizza. They're just asking me a million questions on all that stuff. Um, and I remember I kind of hit it off with Ray, and he was like, yeah, we live in New York. You should come by our apartment. Him and Purcell had an apartment. And so I'm like, oh yeah, maybe. Like, fuck yeah. So I remember probably like a week or two later, just like after school one day, rolling over to their apartment on 15th Street and like ringing the bell. And it was like, I remember I just kind of like walked in their apartment and just started going through their records and just looking at their records, like, because he invited me over, and then we started hanging out, and then I started hanging out with those guys, and then it was all through that I found my way into like Gorilla Biscuits and Warzone, like through those connections. um and I don't know how this started, but basically that first CB show, was a huge show for like a lot of reasons. With so that was like Youth of Today, Warzone, I think Side by Side, and Altercation. That was
Damn.
that was that that was my first time playing yeah, that was my first time playing CBs.
So you join Warzone with Walter and Arthur shortly after, right? You start.
Yeah. So, I was trying to put it all together, the sequence of things of how, because I remember meeting those dudes, because meeting like Ray and those guys, that was that was kind of important because that's how I started then kind of connecting with some of those guys more. And at the end of 86, I think, timeline's a little off, but I tried out through those guys. I tried out for Youth of Today. This is early. This is before Mike. This is like before Mike joined.
Yeah.
Um, and I went, and it all went well. But I was like just starting 10th grade maybe, and I think they were going to the West Coast, and I couldn't go, so it didn't work out playing with them. But I think it was right around that time too that Gorilla Biscuits needed a drummer, and it was through meeting Ray and those dudes that I also met like Walter, and I think Walter asked if I wanted to come play or try out or something like that. And so I got together with Walter and them, played with those guys, like I think just a couple of weeks after that Youth of Today tryout, joined Gorilla Biscuits. And this is all, and then so, okay, parallel, simultaneously at this time, Warzone is just broken up. And Ray sort of was like scrambling to put together a new lineup. And he had gotten Walter and Arthur to join as well. So I just joined Gorilla Biscuits. And I think it's like a week or two after with GB, and Walter and Arthur, after GB practice, are going to a Warzone practice. And Warzone are hands down my favorite fucking band. I'm like, I'm coming. Can I come? Yeah, dude, come. So we walk down to the practice space where Warzone's gonna practice, and the guy who they had lined up, who was the new drummer, didn't show up. And I'm sitting there, and maybe one of those guys was like, like Luke can play it or whatever. And I remember, and that was I'd met Ray a couple of times, Bees, not Capo, and he was like basically like, okay, I'll show you how to, like, I'll play each song and then you sit down and play one. Meanwhile, let me just back up a minute. Mind you, I'm in the fucking practice room now with Warzone, and I'm already like, I'm fucking, I won again, dude, like victory, you know? And so Ray would sit down. Ray was not a good drummer, but and he would sit down and he would play the song. I already knew every fucking song, in my head, and then I would sit down and play them. And so a couple hours later, I had just done like Warzone practice, and that was like amazing, great, awesome. And we leave and we're walking up, and Ray worked at that club. He worked at this club, the Pyramid, which was like a block up from where we were practicing. And so we were like, okay, we'll leave practice and we'll walk up there. And we start walking up to where he's walking, and he's up there walking ahead with Brad. And then like he kind of like falls back. He's like, "Yo, Lukie," and he starts talking to me, and he just asked me to join the band right then. And dude, it was like I went from like just wanting, like, from just salivating to like playing a real band and being in fucking Loud and Boisterous, you know what I mean? And singing about fucking Union Carbide and like, what the fuck am I doing here? To like all of a sudden, like, sweet, I'm in fucking Gorilla Biscuits and Warzone right now. Like, I'm done. I'm good. And yeah, it was amazing.
You're technically in all three at the same time, though, right?
I think so. This is all LAB played a show like that month, and that was it. So it was like everything had just. I think when LAB had played that last show, which might have been like our fifth show, uh, I had probably just join GB at that point. Like, I mean, and we're talking like days, you know what I mean? Maybe a week. Like this is all within, the funny thing about that time period back then, it's like, you know, we're talking about a few years, and it's just so much compressed into that short amount of time.
I I think when it was either Ray or Purcell, when they were on the show, they talked about running into Rabies and Rabies being like, "Yo, I'm straight edge." Was Rabies still straight edge, claiming edge back then? At that point,
So I know, so like 80, I remember there was a big time in like 86, like Ray was very like on the straight edge train. Um, I don't know, honestly. I mean, he wasn't like getting fucked up all the time or anything. He wasn't like, you know what I mean? And he wasn't doing anything in public. Uh, he wasn't really like, I don't know what he was doing like on his own time, to be honest.
because like you're the one who sticks around out of the trio of you the longest in Warzone, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, so as that lineup, so the beginning of playing in Warzone was very, um, it was a little chaotic at first. It was like a different lineup almost every show. Um, so I think Arthur played maybe two shows with us. Walter maybe three. Like like, I mean, it was just a handful. We did a recording with for that New York, what is it, the Revelation
The
7 inch.
the 7 inch
That's
weight, yeah, the comp.
Yeah, that's myself and Walter and Ray and Brad. So Walter's on that, but by like Walter joined Youth at Today. That was the big beef. Those dudes got Walter. Walter joined Youth at Today, and this whole sort of like schism got sort of like created out of that, of those guys like sort of poaching Walter from Warzone, and so Walter was out by, or like springtime, late spring, or like beginning of the summer of 87. And then so that, yeah, there was actually a minute there where, so then it was just myself and Ray and Brad, um, and we actually did one show with Richie Birkenhead played guitar, and then Brad got all messed up and he split, and then there was a couple of minutes where it was literally just me and Ray, and
You guys didn't. What were you guys doing? Practicing still, or just the two of you? Or
no, it was just like, so he's gone, and Ray was like, Ray was amazing. He was like a fucking, like, like football team coach, like, just the orchestrator. And he's like, I got it. I got a guy for bass. And he's like, and I got these other guys from this band Altercation to play like guitars. He's like, all right. And like, I knew the Altercation guys, and I didn't know Jay played guitar. I was like, the singer? All right. And I still remember, and so we played this one show with with Richie and Brad, and then I think, I don't know, probably the next week or 2 weeks later, we go in to practice, and John and Paul and Jay all show up, the whole lineup that does that record. um and like from the first song right away, it was like, oh my god, we were like already tight, like right away. And then we just took off from there, and then for the rest of that year, that band was like, I mean, we were like, it was like a fucking military expedition, or whatever. It was like we were so regimented as far as everything we were doing. um yeah.
it's amazing because you play on like two of the great East Coast hardcore records ever within
Thank
like a
you.
year of each other.
Yeah, dude, I mean, that Warzone record that we did, that it has sort of endured, and has it's come like that, it came out as it did, is, I don't fu- is wild, man. Like, we played a matinee in Albany, or we played a show, maybe not a matinee. We played in Albany on a Thursday, and then we drove down the next day. We drove down to somewhere in New Jersey to this like tiny little like basement studio, and like I didn't even, dude, I didn't even have a full drum set. Like we just rolled down like after the show on like on a Friday, set everything up, and then over the course of Friday and Saturday, we did the entire record, everything start to finish. Played the entire thing is live. There's like some of the vocals are done, not live, and some of the solos, but everything else is like all five of us playing at the same time and mixed and everything done by fucking Saturday night. And then Sunday we went and played CB's. It was like, I mean, that was I mean, talk about a fucking cool weekend.
Yeah. And
Um,
and it's like you're saying, it's a record that I think it's the honesty of it, just like it sounds so timeless.
we were, dude, we were like, it was, we could have done it in our sleep at that point because we were just like, we were super, super, super prepared. Um, but that it sounds like that and that it's stuck around like that and it really holds up. Yeah, it blows me away too, man. You know what I mean? I mean, from like a listen, like, as objectively. And I think it's a good, record too. You know,
Was it coming out on Fist Records as opposed to Revelation kind of result, do you think, of the beef?
no, that was more Ray. Ray just had all, dude. Ray had so many fucking angles and different shit that he would work, and so many like, and this was just like one of his things. Like, I've got this guy thinking, I've got this guy Lee, and they're gonna put it together, and they're gonna do it, and it worked. He really wanted to stay as in control of everything and independent. Not like Revelation was any big major label or anything by any means, but I think he really wanted to just like, this is our fucking independent thing. um and I think it was easier. I think he might there might have been some benefits of like skirting all the record label sort of apparatus, or what have you. But yeah, no, that I don't know. I mean, I never really paid attention to anything uh band wise involving like the schematics, money, logistics, or any of that. All I fucking care. I was 15, man. All I did was like play drums and that was it. I was not the adult in the room.
Fist Records is a
I don't think they did anything else, did
no,
they?
they did one other record,
Oh,
the Six in Violence LP 2 years
oh
later,
wow. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. There you
which
go.
has Ian Anderson or Ian Anderson from Jethro Tull
No
on
way.
2 songs playing flute.
I remember the singer of Six and Violence who I would always be friendly with. Um, I don't remember. I've seen the band. I don't really remember the band, but wow, that's funny. I haven't thought of them in a long time.
Yeah, it's something that's come up on the show a couple times, and I think the Ian Anderson thing
That's
blows
great.
my mind. But
Yeah.
he apparently was a fan.
How did that come about?
I don't know. And there's one of the songs is about farting, and he does like a spoken word thing on it too.
It sounds pretty appropriate. I mean, subject you know, subject matter for hardcore songs really, we're pretty expensive. We can do anything, man.
Well, it also feels like only in New York could something like this wind up happening. In the same way, like recently I found out that the Old Smoke record was recorded at Richie Havens' studio.
Oh wow.
Yeah, the judge
Very cool.
that Mike
Very
used to
cool.
jam with Richie Havens.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, you know what? I don't think maybe I did know that. I don't know, but yeah, go figure, man.
Anytime, anytime I'm there, I'm
Very
like,
cool.
I'm like, anytime I'm in New York, I'm like, something could happen tonight. Like it could get really exciting somehow. Even now,
Yeah.
where like you're saying the city's changed so much, there's just like this bizarre energy.
Yeah, I don't have the same kind of relationship with New York as I used to. I mean, I moved away. Uh I moved away after like my teenage years and I never really went back to live. I lived in New York again after that for a couple of years. Um but no, I mean like yeah, even now, I mean, it is very it is a very volatile live place, all the time. Very exciting, you know.
At the same time you're playing in Warzone, it seems like the ascent of Gorilla Biscuits really getting going.
I think that it was actually kind of slower because, in that year, so when I was doing Warzone, Walter joined Youth of Today, and Youth of Today did a lot that year, and Warzone did a lot that year. Gorilla Biscuits was not really like we didn't do a whole lot that like in '87. We'd play some shows, but um it was not there was not a lot going on. Um we didn't GB didn't really start kicking in hard until like 88, I think. Um I mean, we were playing and we were doing some stuff, but it just wasn't like it wasn't as routine. Um, like I would say that probably I mean, Youth Today was on tour like the whole summer of '87. You know what I mean? Civ's on tour with them too. I mean, we're just not doing, like it's just not the main focus for anybody really. Um, that all changed the next year. I quit Warzone in the beginning of uh I think I played my last show in like the end of February of '88. Um, Gorilla Biscuits started kicking in a little more at that point, and then by '89 we were really like or maybe by the end of '88. I'm not sure. Somewhere around there.
Was
Um,
Warzone touring at all, or are you guys like doing road trips, or
I did road trips with them, but I never went. I think the farthest I went with Warzone was, I mean, like, like Northeast, man, like DC, Buffalo, Philly, like not far, There was always like, hey, we're gonna go tour here and there, fucking raise ideas. We're gonna go to Brazil and then we're gonna go to Alaska and then we're gonna go to Serbia and then we're gonna go to fucking, fucking Sardinia and the guy had fucking a million plans. But no, we didn't. I don't think Warzone really started touring until later, until the
the
'90s, I don't
'90s? Yeah,
think.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I don't really know. Um, but I don't think they did. I think it was a while before they really started like getting overseas and even out to the West Coast or anything.
Outside of New York, was it like kind of radically different crowds the two bands would be playing to, Gorilla Biscuits versus Warzone?
Uh, the only thing I'd say is there were a couple of Warzone shows that we did that were no, I mean most of them were just scene shows. There were a couple of Warzone shows that we did that were predominantly kind of like skinheady shows outside, um, that were not fucking so great. Um, but no, for the most part at this point, man, it's all the same people you're seeing, whatever city you're going to. Everyone's coming, people are coming out to everything, I think. I mean, up until a certain point, I mean, if there's a show, you're going. You know what I mean? It doesn't really matter who's playing, um, you're going.
Yeah, and it's interesting because like I feel like that late '80s period is where like skinhead stops being a hardcore subculture and starts becoming a separate culture unto itself.
Yeah, I mean, there's some things that happen. There's like, whatever stuff gets blown up in the news. What was the shit? What was it? Fucking on Geraldo,
Geraldo,
there's
yeah.
like the incident, and so it takes a couple of things and people people get yeah, it changed. I do think that like Warzone back then, we probably there was probably a lot of people who got really into like skinhead stuff through that band. Um, not in a bad way necessarily, but it was definitely becoming like a bigger a bigger US scene, you know what I mean? Like all over you go, they're different less sort of like mixed up into the whole hardcore crowd and like, definitive, skinhead pockets and shit. Um,
Yeah, you're right, because there's the New York skinhead thing, which is obviously like, well, that's where I guess the American skinhead thing starts, really gets going. But then it's like Forced Reality up in Connecticut, Warzone obviously prior to that in New York. But like there's sort of this idea of like skinhead as opposed to hardcore kid that's a skinhead. Oh, I'm a skinhead, I'm a hardcore kid, I shave my head. As opposed to
yeah,
like dressing in docks, dressing a certain way, which it seems like it became a lot more formalized in that late era.
yeah. I think yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. I think people started picking up on you know, the different nuances of it and like what it means to be a skinhead and really trying to pigeonhole themselves in these places and it was all I mean, to me, it was a little silly. Uh, I mean, honestly, I mean, I liked it all, and so it was just a little like to me. Some of it was what I was seeing in like in the States seemed a little like I don't know, just a little corny, maybe. Maybe. I mean, not that, like and I'm not trying to knock like you know anything about like you know cool style, cool fashion, cool music, and the whole thing. But like again, it's like there's so much cool shit going on. It just I don't know. I'm not. Maybe I'm not articulating my sort of like eye rolling sort of perspective on the whole thing, and I don't mean it with any like with any attitude. Just like it just what kind of like eh.
No, I totally get what you're saying too, because it's like,
It's a lot of work, man. Like putting a lot of time into something that I don't really, I'm fine in a t-shirt.
well, that's like in England, and I'm someone who searched out the Doc Martens, so I'm not doing this with any sort of like casting dispersions on people for doing so, but like in England, it was just like kind of a result of the environment. Like this was like the culture, like we were talking about earlier with the youth crew thing and you guys versus bands that are trying to imitate it. Whereas like in North America to do these things, it took a lot of work. Like there's only two shops in Toronto that sold Docs. Both were kind of sketchy, but
Right.
those were like that was where you had to go to buy Doc Martens. Like it was, Fred Perry shirts. They were sort of like $100+. I went to England for the first time and I'm like, these are like $20 here. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, exactly. It makes a little more sense. I remember because I mean like I I remember those like I had a lot of we all used to give each other a lot of shit. I mean, we still do to this day, but I mean, going on now like 40 plus years of, of giving each other a hard time. And I remember so by the end of like my time in Warzone, I mean, I wasn't like into I wasn't like a skinhead. Um and all my guys I'm hanging out with, they're all just fucking, yo, Luke, you a skinhead, man? Just giving me a fucking hard time. And I remember I was out with Youth of Today in '88 on tour, and we stayed at the Maximum Rock and Roll House. And we're all downstairs. You ever been there? It was the best, dude. So everyone's like hanging out in that like sort of like record room clubhouse downstairs. And Ray comes down. He's like, hey, Luke, come upstairs. We gotta ask you some stuff. And I go upstairs, and it's him and Timmy Yohannan, and he's set up there with a tape recorder. And he's like, okay, Luke, we're gonna interview on you on what it means to be a skinhead. And I was like, yo. no, you're not. And they were just like, nah, we're just fucking with you. They like tried to get it rolling for like a few minutes, and like I was just like, they were just fucking with me. But I was like,
I love your vibe on the photos for Don't Forget the Struggle. Like, as a kid, getting that record and being like, it's so awesome that there's this Gorilla Biscuits crossover to this. And
yeah,
it's like brought the fun. Like, otherwise, it's like the whole thing could be read as too serious by half. But then you're
I'll
like,
dude, I'll tell you, man, that group of guys in Warzone that we were with, like, I mean, I don't know what it looked like from the outside, but it was fucking, dude, it was pure comedy, man. Like, I mean, it was like I spent, like I spent just as much time fucking like laughing and joking around. Like that was just as much integral to fucking being in bands and the hardcore scene as everything else. I mean, and so that sort of like joking around and just being and just being a kid, like that never stopped. You know what I mean? And that kind of runs through everything. It never really, I mean, that's part of the thing that got me into like something I think about hardcore was just that like there is just something fun about this entire thing the whole way through. And like, I can only be who I am and it's like I don't, I mean, a bunch of fucking dudes like in a basement dressing room, like, like okay, like fucking dance for the camera, like, all right, of course this is gonna come out fucking ridiculous.
yeah, I found like that's something about New York, and you see it too in LA, where there's like bands that were like from the city and like grew up around just urban realities, always have these like really deep sense of humors.
Humor, dude, humor. As I mean, like even aside from hardcore, as I've gotten older, man, I mean, a good sense of humor, man. I mean, I mean, that's as important as fucking having good health, I think. But I agree. Like, I think, living in New York, it's like you, you develop, I think again, it's the environment, you get exposed to a lot and you get exposed to um, a lot of different kinds of like ridiculousness and humor. And like it's just like for instance New York, people in the street, maybe less so now, are always interacting and getting into it with each other, maybe not like on every level, and people are always joking around, and it's that ability to just sort of like riff with people and bounce things off, and you're constantly always making jokes. It's like that's just built in, I think, into New York hardcore. You know what I mean? Like into like that whole New York scene. Um, there was no like again, it's like, talking about like, compared to a lot of other cities and everything. This is all like everything is all happening in the same little area. You know what I mean? There's not like we're not like going somewhere to do it. It's just I don't know. It's I have a hard time explaining how much a part of like the sort of like world at large New York, like New York, how hardcore existed in New York City. It was such a part of it, as opposed to a lot of other cities where it was like sort of like an island within it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
It
I like how hardcore by its nature, and punk, I guess more broadly, is just like it's always going to adapt to where you put it, and
totally,
the way it adapts is going to dictate how it sounds. Like you look at all those basement
totally,
bands from New Jersey, because New Jersey had basements, right? You could have basement shows, and so the style of punk that emerges there is so radically different than the stuff that's happening in New York, where everyone's living in apartments on top of each other.
Right, or at least, like the early, like the first generations of all these kind of things, because then it's like, like we're talking about, then you get to the point where these things have like come out, and now it's that becomes the template, as opposed to, like, we're talking about, like, in New York, it's there's just so much happening all together. It's all fucking in the same place.
Yeah, like that's why I think rap metal was so adversive to people at like from certain like in Toronto. To me it was like I was like, ah, the sound, and but there's like a lot of New York bands that were doing that sound, and it wasn't like they were like appropriating hip hop culture. It's like, no, this is the culture that they're part of too, and they're just trying to bring these things together,
Yeah,
and it's
I mean,
not understandable outside of that city, I think, in the same way it is within that city.
right, because I mean, you're talking about like people who are, it's like, you know, out maybe in Toronto, it's like, you keep your fucking jelly in that fucking room, and you keep your peanut butter, like, down the hall there, you know. In New York, it's like, dude, the fucking peanut butter and jelly's on the same table all the time. It's like at a certain point, someone's like, yo, fucking, let's make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, as
Yeah,
opposed to, it's less, it's not, it's like right there, it's right in front of you, it's making sense. It's not, I don't know that it's as premeditated. It's a lot easier, I think, after the fact to go then back and say, "Oh, this was the intention." I think a lot of these things just kind of happen. There's a little bit of chemistry, spontaneity, whatever you want to call it, serendipity. It's just like timing, location.
yeah, transit, I think
But
too. Transit, like,
yeah, exactly. But in New York, you've got so many more options for that to happen, just because of the composition of the place, you know?
it's also a place, and I find this like an East Coast thing that is in particular in punk more adverse to success and following that path. Like if the Gorilla Biscuits were in California, I think there would have been a lot more label opportunities, a lot more sort of like
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
versus the East Coast.
Yeah, it's yeah, for whatever reason, man, I don't, I'm not really I don't really know. I don't know the answer, but it does seem that, like, I don't know if there's more success. I think there's more, like, that's just more of the way shit works out there. It's kind of weird to me in some ways that, like, the popularity and influence of so many bands in New York, right? I mean, you've got a, like, I mean, I mean, fucking pound for pound in terms of quantity, New York, like, has definitely, like, been a big influence as far as, like, what you would consider sort of like success with bands and those kind of things and musical success. New York seems like, it definitely seems like an imbalance of bands that have really come out of there and really done well with for themselves and stuff like that. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why that is. And that just, maybe, I don't know, maybe that's just my weird perspective on it. Um, it just seems like, like the sort of whole side of like California punk bands and stuff. Um, it just seems more pro. It seems like more like this is like being regarded as like a real legitimate music and taking it seriously and getting professional treatment. I mean, obviously not always, but New York for the longest time, it never seemed like, you know, it it never seemed like uh hardcore and all these kind of things were given, like, really valued by, like, this sort of like professional side of music. Um it was just kind of like something that we're going to let these guys do, and it sort of gets tolerated, but it's not like viable, it's not like a thing. Um i think uh I think California, that whole sort of lifestyle out there with just industry stuff and everything, has always had an eye on how is this, how to maybe not blow this up, but like the spectacle of what's going on, the entertainment value and the promotion of it. And um where I think generally speaking, New York is much more and always has been like a fucking, you're clawing your way through stuff. Um,
Y-
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, there's an optimism. Like when Civ was on, he talked about how when Civ, the band,
Mhm.
signed to the major label, Civ the person went outside and had like a nervous breakdown over
Yeah,
it. Like, I can't believe we're doing this, and I don't know if he was part of that on the West Coast, part of that thing in the West Coast, you'd have that same sort of like moral pangs about it in the same sort of way. Mind you,
yeah,
that being said, people from Green Day talked about how they dealt with it in Jawbreaker as well, but it just feels like
yeah.
there's more of an optimism and less doom and gloom around it, and your friends would be more happy for you. Whereas I think in the East Coast there'd be like a real bitterness.
There's a little bit. I think. Yeah, I think there's like the idea of selling out or being successful outside the sort of confines of the scene in New York has always been like, you know, oh dude, you're a fucking poser. You're selling out or whatever that is. You know what I mean? And it's sort of like not like that's not you're doing it for other reasons. You know what I mean? You've got ulterior motives. You know what I mean? Trying to be a rock star, these kind of things. And I think there's a really I think there's something to be said for that. That like not. I think there's something to be said for like not putting such a fucking like premium value on like making it. At the same time, you're playing music, you're a musician, and the idea of like of constant movement, forward motion, playing for more people, doing other stuff is like, of course you're going to want to do that. You know what I mean? Most people, not everybody, but I mean the idea that somebody would want to do that, get bigger, let's say. I think that's perfectly fucking understandable and reasonable, um so I think California sort of like the West Coast, that idea is like, oh yeah, of course. Whereas, like we're saying, New York is a little more like protective, like this is our scene. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
I can, and in some ways too. I mean, it's you can understand it. I mean, the bigger stuff gets, the more people get exposed to it, and the more shit gets diluted, and the more you end up, you know, the more stuff changes, you know, whether or not it's a good or bad change, but it changes, inevitably. So I don't know. I think that idea of having things change that way was not as readily welcomed in New York, you
yeah,
know?
and maybe it goes to what we were talking about earlier, like because it's such a strong community and family of the scene version of the scene where it's like when someone leaves it, you're not just leaving, or when someone's got aspirations beyond it, it's not just
Right.
aspirations beyond it musically, it's aspirations beyond our family. Like, oh, we're not good enough for you all of a sudden.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's hard. I mean, I guess it's hard to say, but I don't really know where those tensions come from. Um, I think there's an element in, I mean, I know that like I felt very like protective of like sort of hardcore when I was younger. Like, fuck, man, like I found something that really, really does it for me and is really special. And part of the reason it does that is because like a lot of these fucking kinds of people that I don't want to have anything to do with are not part of it. They don't like it. They don't register it, recognize it. They don't want to have anything to do with it. And that to me is like good. You know what I mean? Like, and things start to become bigger, and then you open the door to more people who are maybe not in it for the same, they don't necessarily have the same, you know, affinity for it, or they don't feel the same connection to it. I mean, it's hard to judge what somebody else is feeling, but like maybe it's not, you don't see it as quite as vital to them because they're getting into it for, you know, you're getting into it because it hit you like fucking lightning and you didn't have any, you didn't have another spot that felt like that. Whereas somebody else is seeing like, oh, this might be kind of cool. Like I see it's becoming cool or something. But I don't know, man. Like it's hard to, I think the idea of like, I mean, part of the fucking the awesome thing about getting involved in hardcore and punk and all these stuff is the lack of like, it is the lack of rules and structure and expectations. So, but that stuff runs its course, and then you have people that are going to start putting rules and expectations into like where they're not, where the whole idea is there aren't any, and that'll change again. But I think you just got to let. I think people. I think I don't know. A little too People are a little too clenched about what makes it the scene, and what makes it punk, and what's selling out. You know what I mean? I mean, I don't know. Does that
I'm
make sense?
no, completely, and I'm of like two completely contradicting minds on it because, like you're saying, like this is cool because not everyone, but like the majority of people that you meet at these shows are cool. Like especially when you're at a small show, you're like, fuck, this is like the hardcore. Everyone here is cool and we can all have these great conversations and then all of a sudden when you like I hit me when I was at that stadium shows a couple weeks ago. I'm like, oh, there's a lot of fucking assholes here, and it's like, oh yeah, because when your band becomes popular, it's not like there's just more cool people around. It's like, no,
Yeah,
you found a way to cross over to assholes that you hated.
yeah.
And I'm sure that pissed off Kurt Cobain and bummed him out, like looking out and being like, oh, fuck. I found a way to appeal to the people that I made this music because I hated.
Sure. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I mean, but I mean that kind of stuff is yeah, yeah, it's very accurate. It is completely out of your control as, a player, you know. Or I wouldn't say completely out of your control, but it's you don't have total control over who's going to like what you do, come to your shows, and you can, then start to, I think, kind of like cultivate it a little bit more. You can you know, be more sort of like in like Fugazi veins of, and which I think is great. Um, of trying to like, keep things in sort of that same world, which is a fucking beautiful world where, you know, um, yeah, it's hard. I mean, the thing about hardcore, all punk is like, I mean, I'm pretty glad that it was sort of like it remained as quiet as it did for as long as it did. You know what I mean? I mean, to me, it was like, from day one, like, wow, like, thank God, like, this should be the biggest thing in the world. This is the best thing in the world. Thank fucking God it's not. You know what I mean? Because that would ruin it. But like, it's only a matter of time, I would, say like eventually more and more people are going to catch on to like how good this all is. You know what I mean? I mean, to me anyway, like I've always like the second I started hearing, I heard the fucking Cause for Alarm EP. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing in the fucking world. Like, why is this not up with, fucking Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band? You know what I mean? Eventually, there's going to be more people who are going to be like, wow, this is fucking great. I would imagine because, um, I don't know. I think there's a commonality to taste. You know what I mean? Like chances are if you really like something, chances are somebody else is also going to really like it too. It's pretty hard to have like a real taste for things that nobody else likes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the fact that hardcore punk and all this stuff sort of like grows out of its original house, I mean, you know, if it wasn't so fucking awesome, that wouldn't have happened.
But then you see, like, I guess to me, I've always looked at Rage Against the Machine being sort of like the most commercial outgrowth from the Youth Crew thing, given Zach's
For
connection to
sure.
Inside Out,
For
right?
sure.
And I don't blame him for never wanting to do another record or never really wanting to play shows or tour because it's like, yeah, we've seen what happens when you get to the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
It's like I totally can understand why someone would choose the Fugazi path, and I don't have to choose either. I'm like much below the Fugazi path, so I'm on the side street down the block. But like I can totally look at these two versions of this thing and see why like the Fugazi path outside of the money is probably the more soul satisfying path to be on.
Yeah, I mean, I think it takes a lot of I think it takes a special ability and fairly rare ability how to see what you have, how special and how good something is in the moment, and be able to sort of find a way to sustain that without stagnating it and keep that enduring. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times it's like, wow, this is really fucking good. And you're looking for how do we grow this or how do we continue this? Or you're not paying attention to, the sort of like, your sort of spatial awareness around what's happening by having this thing so good. You're not really aware of what's going on around you. You're not really realizing that, thousands and thousands of people are starting to like get into this fucking thing. But to be able to say like, no, this is sort of like the sort of world we want to play in, and be able to sort of keep it like exciting and keep it live and you know uh keep it moving. That's pretty difficult, you know what I mean? I know as a band, I know that's something that we like GB has tried to do, um sort of keep things like moving, but like like sort of a balloon that only will get up to a certain height and just but keeps at that height.
Yeah,
It's like,
100%. I was going to say you guys are a band that I think's achieved it. I know there were some wilderness years to get here,
oh
but
yeah.
I remember being at that Brooklyn show we played with you guys, and I was in a really bad mood that day. And
Oh, it was a great show.
yeah, and then watching you guys play and being like, "Holy fuck! If this isn't the best band on the planet, and the vibe is the best vibe
Thank
I've
you.
seen for a band. Like everyone's smiling, everyone's having a great time, and like it it did feel the same way it felt when I saw you on that first reunion. Not internally because I know Siv said he was like all over the place and
Uh-huh.
but like when I we played with you guys at that first reunion run in the Phoenix in Toronto,
Yep.
it
Oh,
was
I
the
remember
same
that.
vibe when you guys came out. Like just like
Yeah.
smiles and so that's like a God, nearly a 20-year span between the two, close to it
20
now.
years. Yeah.
And you guys have found a way to maintain that without, like you're
Yeah.
saying, like it's a balancing act.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it really is. I mean, I think that has, I mean, I mean, as far as like, now speaking about us, I think that, I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into that. And I think one of the things, um, that does contribute to it is something we were talking about earlier on. I don't even know if it was before we started, but that we are a very, very, very different group of guys in terms of character, personality, and all that. And I think there's enough space within us that we all kind of recognize where things are and can appreciate that. Um, and, can sort of like take care of it in a way. It takes a while. It's hard. It's to keep a band going for a length of time and to have good shows and keep it going. And I'm not even talking about new music or anything like that. I mean, it's partly you're doing, but partly it's like, it's just the way the world works. I mean, who knows? You know what I mean? It's like you can wake up one day and everybody could like decide that like I don't really like that anymore, or they want to do something else. So yeah,
Well, and that's kind of what it felt like if there was like a what if with Gorilla Biscuits, like what if there had been a post, start today record
yeah.
like a 91 record.
I think that if we would have done, I mean, dude, it's all speculation, right? Um, but my suspicion is that if we would have done another record, um, it probably would have been fucking good. I mean, like, and I don't mean that in an arrogant way. It's just like I think, we would have written a good record. I don't, how it would come, who knows how, I mean, again, it's total speculation. But at the time, if we would have done it, we would have wanted to do it. And, and it would have come out as it, would. I think doing something like today, so long after the fact, would be a completely different story. Um, but it's would it have changed the way the band has been received, or like the reaction to start today and like people's appreciate? I don't know. I mean, probably, maybe not.
Yeah,
You know?
on like a what would have happened in the mainstream and like could it have broken through to the mainstream is like a what if. But like, well, you say no, and I see you're shaking your head, but
Yeah,
I think the one argument against it would have been how would the media have latched on to it in the face of grunge and like circa 90, 92, 93, where you
yeah,
do have like a positive version of straight edge because the media was obsessed with it come Earth Crisis, but it was a negative, you
yeah.
know, spin on it.
I mean, I think you can kind of see what essentially. I mean, look. I mean, the band Civ, and uh, I mean, that's probably a fairly close approximation to what it would have been. I think. I don't know.
There's a
A little
closer
different,
approximation.
but
Moondog.
different thing. That is very separate. But what I would say also, just to like, the gorilla, like, dude, GB today, how we play, our sort of like proficiency in what we're doing, very different band. I mean, not 100, obviously, same fucking songs, same people, but um, we were good when we were playing at our height, like early in the 80s, but we didn't get like, I don't think we got like really fucking like really good until like later on, like towards near like the end. Um, and so I just don't think that I don't think the band would have become, I don't know, hard to say. Hard to say what would have happened.
Well, and Moondog, I guess, is like right after, so it is different, right? Because it's the pre-quicksand thing. But you play on the Moondog recording, right?
So here's the evolution. So Moondog was we were I can tell you the whole like how it all came about, where we were coming back from the idea for Moondog was uh Walter wanted to do something like a little sort of like a little darker, and I think he wanted to sing, and I really wanted to play bass. And we were coming back from a show in DC, and my friend Howie from New Jersey he used to drive us a lot, and I was really into it because I had my license, but I wasn't allowed to drive in the five boroughs. So Howie would let me drive his car. I was really fucking psyched on that. So we're coming back from the show, me, Walter, and Howie, and I'm driving, and we start talking about putting together this band in the car. And of course, and Howie's in the car, so we asked Howie, like, okay, Howie's gonna play guitar, and so Walter and I put together Moondog in, dude, like 2 or 3 practices, and then went and did like this sort of like demo-y kind of recording that became everything that got released and everything. But that all took place in like, I think like early 89 is when we started talking about it, maybe. And then I think it was right around then or something around there. But it was like not really, it was very, 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 it was a blip. And then it happened, I think, maybe 1990. Gosh, man, it's a little bit of a mystery to me.
I,
Um,
at one point, I was working on doing like a vinyl reissue of it with a record label in Walter. So I had all the flyers. So like, it's interesting because some flyers that say Moondog and it's actually Quicksand by that point. So it feels like,
well, yeah, well, we did one show and I played bass. So on the recording, it was just Walter and myself. And then we did the show and Howie played guitar, Armand played drums, and I played bass, and Tom Capone also played guitar. And that was the one show. And then the next show was like, I think, shit, the next year. And that was a totally different lineup. It was Walter, Tom, Sergio, and Sam. And they did one show. And then I think after that, it was Quicksand. So it was like, I think the band like totally played maybe one or two shows.
I,
um,
I kind of think like if you take those songs or the direction of those songs and that
I
first Civ,
love those songs.
incredible,
Yeah,
incredible recording. Like
yeah.
I love that. Like I'm so happy I worked on that reissue just so I could get a proper CD version to listen to for myself. Um, but I think if you look at those songs and then the stuff that would become that first Civ LP, a Gorilla Biscuits LP in between those would have been unbelievable. Like it would have been such a cool record. Even Civ, like I brought it up when he was on the show, like why not just call Civ Gorilla Biscuits and kind of like try and go off that legacy? Because you're in Civ too, right? So like
No, 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 no.
I thought you played
So no, no, no. So 19 I went 1990 was the last year I played. I had so at the end of that, so actually 1990 I started going to school upstate New York later in that year. I'm like a year like after I graduated high school in 89, and then I didn't go to school that next year. And then I started going to college in I guess September of 90. And every single weekend, I didn't spend a single weekend up there. Every single weekend, I was coming into New York, and actually Walter and I were practicing because I was still in GB at that point. At that point, the lineup is Purcell is playing bass, and Alex is still in the band, but we don't have many shows, so and Alex is living in Iowa, I think, at this point. I don't know, I'm not sure where Alex is. But Walter and I practiced, and then at the end of, and I was by that point, man, I was not. We were kind of myself and all those guys were kind of diverging. I'd gone skiing for the first time and gotten like it was like part two of hardcore. Like here's the next fucking lightning bolt that's going to completely change your life.
the new
And so
skank part
what
is moguls.
the new skank perfectly put. And it was like so after I went like after we did a bunch of tours after I got out of high school, and as soon as fucking we were done, I just moved out west. And so that was it. And I remember it was like the end of 1990, and I had already planned like, look, I'm going to Colorado. I'm fucking splitting school. I'm going to Colorado for the winter. Like, we're cool, right? I'll be back. Like you guys are cool, like not playing essentially. And like they were already like, no, dude, we want to like play. And so they got rid of me. Um, it was like I think the last show I did was like right around Christmas time, 1990. And yeah, and then that was it. Um, so
Until Alpha Jerk.
until I didn't, so after that, I did not have any involvement with any real band playing out until, yeah, for like till Alpha Jerk. So that's like about 7 years, 6 or 7 years. I kind of like I spent a good 6 or 7 years. Some of it going to school upstate, a lot of it out west. Fucking around. I was playing music, but not all the time. I was mostly out there, like just getting into the mountains and skiing and listening to fucking the Allman Brothers and Santana and discovering all this stuff that like I had never really gotten into over that time. And everybody and hardcore sort of changed. So like I have no real involvement in hardcore from basically like the end of 1990 until pretty much like 1998. I'm basically or no, the Alpha Jerk stuff, but that was a little, that's tangential to it. So yeah, it took a while. So what happens with Gorilla Biscuits and Civ and all that is, or like Quicksand Civ and all that. That's all. I'm not a part of any of that happening.
Were you ever in talks? Do you ever talk to those guys about playing together again, or are you just sort of like, I'm on a new path now? Be in between?
Um, no, it was not like it was understandable that we all kind of split up as we did. Um, but it was tough, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I wasn't into it, but it was still a fucking, it was still a fucking 20-hole DM to the gut.
Yeah.
It was, so there were a few years there where like I really had no contact with most of those guys. And then when did I reconnect with him? I think I reconnected like I think around when Civ was like getting going, those first Warp tours. And I was living out in California. I kind of reconnected with them. Walter and I reconnected, and it was like the sort of like the first and only time we ever sort of like hash stuff out about like older stuff. But then yeah, then that was it was cool, man. It was but I wasn't really a part of any of that stuff going on. And then getting back together was even way later than that.
When did like how did Alpha Jerk come together?
I wasn't a part of getting it together. What was going on? How was that? It was Derek and uh so my buddy who I had met in school, who's like the only one of the only people I ever met in school that I'm still friends with, um, was playing guitar, and this guy Nick, I don't know, a few people I just knew were playing in the band, and the drummer was this guy Nick, who he played in the band called Sweet Diesel too. Really cool drummer, man, really good guy. Um, and for whatever reason, I don't know, maybe he just couldn't do it or whatever, but the guitar player, Derek and I have been friends for a long time, and the guitar player and I, we shared an apartment, and so I just kind of like slipped in there, and so that was just like a year. We did some good shows. It was actually a lot of fun. It just went very fast. Derek got offered to audition for Sepultura, like only like a year into while we were playing, and and uh, I don't know if you know it, but that worked out.
Yeah, it worked out pretty good for him. I
And
like that EP. I think that EP is really cool. Like,
there's some good songs on it. I didn't play on that. Nick plays drums on that, but no, it was some cool songwriting, and there's actually more songs that we wrote and played and we did live, but we never got to record. Um, yeah, it was pretty cool stuff. We never really got time to dig into things and really work before like everything kind of like ended.
well, and Toy Box Records was kind of like, I don't know, an interesting, cool label at that point. Integrity Records
Yeah,
and stuff.
I don't. That was all. I think that was all Derek getting set up. I don't. I'm not. I know I've met the guy who did it once, but I don't have any real connection with them.
Did you meet Derek? Did Elface play with Gorilla Biscuits?
I
Nothing?
know Derek from Cleveland, from when we used to go out to Cleveland and outface stuff. Yes, exactly.
And probably met Charlie.
So Charlie and like Dwid and a few other people out there. I mean, uh, all the guys from some of the guys from Outface went on to like Frank, uh, Mark, yeah, a bunch of like that whole, there's a whole scene out there. Um, but yeah, Charlie and Derek for sure were like, well, I mean, because Charlie and Derek ended up moving to New York like early 90s. And so and so we all became friends much earlier on.
Was it bizarre going to all these places and seeing people starting to dress like you guys and like seeing how this sort of cultural manifestation was spreading across America?
Uh, when it's happening, I don't think I'm really registering it quite so much. It's kind of just like shows are getting bigger and there's, you know, more kids who look like they just fucking came in from surfing, and fucking hooded sweatshirts going on. It's like, so there's like more of it, but I'm not like, yeah, I mean, I don't know that I was I was when I'm playing. And I think I'm kind of I'm probably like this to some extent too these days. When I go and I'm playing shows and everything, um, I'm kind of a little bit in my own world and not necessarily paying attention to, you know, all the demographics and who's doing what or whatever. But I also just like to me it's like I never really like I just never really like phased me one way or the other. Just like I didn't, I never, it just never really bothered me so much one way or the other. I don't know that that there's all this stuff growing and hooded sweatshirts and all these. It just, again, to me, it's seemed like something a little bit in the same way of some of the skinhead stuff of just like, okay, I mean, it's cool if you're into it and that's your thing, cool. It's not fucking, I don't really care. Like, it didn't really, it's not really that important to me. You know what I mean? I was never like, yeah, man, I had hooded sweatshirts and shit, but I've never been like a slick dude. I've never been like fashion conscious, really. You know what I mean? And so, uh, making sure like, like had all the right pieces, the fucking watch and, you know, fucking four sweatshirts. Like, I don't know, man. That stuff just was, I don't know. I just never really thought about it in the same way, the fashion and the dress and all that. I just figure, I mean, it's, I think it doesn't inherently or intrinsically have any fucking value or meaning whatsoever. And so like I just kind of never really paid it much mind. I don't know.
It's interesting how it spreads though, because within 2 years, you've got pockets of it all over America.
Yeah. I mean, I do think it's cool. Like, I mean, I think it's a good indication of, how much people are into the music and and liking, you know, and liking what's going on. I mean, a lot of times, like your choice of fashion is going to be the first thing that you're going to do to like, show the world what you're into and what you like. And it's your first way of expressing, and I think I think it's a really, uh, honest way of doing that. It's like you're showing your colors kind of thing. To me, that never just like, I never like, so, and so what you're seeing that is very cool. Like, oh, this is neat. This is influential. But at the same time, to me, it's not, it doesn't really mean much. And, um, I'm not, a lot of I'm not I just didn't feel such an effect by it. I don't know personally. And if there's people and if that I don't know. Like it I don't see it the same way. I don't like the youth crew fashion and all that stuff is
I can see how it spreads though, because like as a kid, and I'm growing up in the VCR era, but like as VCRs are, camcorders more specifically, aren't necessarily readily available to the sense that everyone has them. A lot of times you're just judging the band and their whole scene on still photos from
right.
fanzines or, that Gorilla Biscuits photo where, you see the champion sweatshirt, you're just like, okay, I got it. This is what they must dress like all the
Yeah.
time.
I mean, you only have so much to go on to like connect yourself to them. You know what I mean? It's like, fuck, okay, I got this bit of music and I've got these pictures from this fanzine and this interview and this fucking style of clothing or whatever. So it's like, okay, like, so I feel like again, I think it's an honest way of doing everything. I guess where I'm coming from is there's always been like this whole uh just whole fucking brouhaha about like the fashion and what kids are wearing and coming into it. And it's like, I just, you know, that was sort of the point. I never gave a shit about any of that. I never, but like, I understand like, uh, I'm I may be a little like more like removed, maybe a little more ignorant of really the real, uh, the real impact of the dress and the fashion of it. But I mean, part of it's because I'm in the middle of it, and
Yeah,
uh,
exactly. And I think for me, later coming to this thing, and I know you guys took a lot of shit for the fashion stuff. Like there's the I think a nausea flyer, which is making fun of youth crew fashion, and like really very early on, and people are like, oh, it was so fashiony, but it was the most economically accessible version of punk rock fashion out there. Like if I were to dress punk, that leather jacket's like $250. Bondage
yeah,
pants were designer. Like creepers were expensive. Like I could go to the discount sporting goods store and look like I jumped out of like my fantasy version of CB's matinee for like less than the cost of a dark pair of Doc Martin boots.
yeah. Yeah, and I mean, honestly, it's like I never really, like once I really got into everything, like I'm not like I said, I'm not like a fucking fashionable guy, so it's like fuck doesn't matter. I don't really care what I'm wearing. You know what I mean? And it's like you'll get caught up in it in the moment. It's like, oh fucking, like, yeah, let's get champion sweatshirts or whatever. But like, and you go through phases of it too, but it's like there is no necessary, not like a dress code. You can, you know what I mean? Like you can wear whatever you want to the show. And yeah, I just I mean, and to me, I mean, personally, man, I'd rather put on a fucking t-shirt and a pair of running shorts and fucking, you know, and never have a pair of socks. um, yeah, I mean, what can I say? I like what I like.
I I think like I think, and this goes back to the when I lost track of my thought, as you've noticed I tend to do. Um, like the other side of the punk rock scene and the protectionist against selling out is the fact that so much of the punk rock experience is shaped by neurodivergent people with insecurity issues that have finally found somewhere they feel safe and welcome. And that's where I think a lot of the, oh no, you're not part of this thing. This is mine. You don't dress the right way. And like a lot of the exclusion comes from the damage that these people are holding on to. And I say this is a very damaged person.
Well, dude, I mean, I think you're hitting a fucking major thing is that like, I mean, yes, speaking for myself, yes, I am like fucking, I am full of, external and internal scars. I think that, when you start getting a lot of like well-rounded individuals, you know, coming in to hang out, like, it can be a little like, you know, it's like it's a bit of a shift. There is, uh, you know, there was a bit of a sort of like rehab element to the hardcore scene, like just kind of like, like running through it. There's like sort of, like I think we are talking about. I don't think that it's not like, I think once you get into it, you realize that, oh, fuck, there is a lot of like positivity here. There is a lot of like, there is a very uplifting message. There is a lot of fucking strength. There is like, a way to take this energy and like make life fucking awesome and better. But from the outside, initially looking in, it doesn't look like it's a positive fucking scene. You know what I mean? And it's sort of like, it's like a fucking, it's like a pit bull. You know what I mean? Like, it's like on the outside, scary as hell, and on the inside, they can be the sweetest things in the world. You know what I mean? But a lot of people are not. You don't discover that unless you sort of like already have a bit of like, there's something that's fucking driving you into that initially that makes you want to like explore more. You know, uh, what's changed over the years. I mean, there's no getting into any. I mean, with the internet changed everything, but eventually, it's like getting into these things doesn't take quite as much. Like, uh, you don't have to have the same kind of drive. There's not necessarily the same kind of like search. I think, and whether even if it's, and that might be a little fucking dramatic, but like there was, I mean, initially, again, there's something that like like I really found in there that like I wouldn't have found if I wasn't already like a little fucking marginalized and looking for something like that, you know?
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
The other day though, I went to a show and it was like a tiny show and not a tiny show. It was like a smaller show, but like and I met some kids there, like younger kids, and I was like, holy shit, this is still the place it's always been for people like me and like them, right? Like,
Yeah.
and it's you still have to search for this version of it. Like there's the
Oh,
big
dude,
version
totally.
thing, right? But like the little thing is still that's the quest.
Oh, totally. And like, and I mean, fucking major disclaimers, I'm in my fucking 50s now, man. I'm not going to, you know what I mean? If I'm not playing, and where I live, I'm not going to many shows. So what's going on now? It's like, and it's so weird that like we're all still doing it. And it's not like we're doing like, the oldies shows. It's like, just the fucking brand new kids all the way through, everybody's still a part of it, but like what's really vibrant and what's going on, I'm not a part of, man. You know what I mean? Those are the shows that are still happening, so there is like, you know what I mean, like I shouldn't be a part of that in some way. Like I feel like that I have a bit of a divide in this. Like this is me and this is who I am and this is what I've done forever. So like, I don't need an invite. This is my scene. I am a part of this. But at the same time, I know it goes in phases too. And I'm not a fucking kid. And I know where I was at when I was 14, 15, 16, and I'm not that kid anymore. And so whatever's going on, even if it's connected to what we're doing, it's like that's something that I'm not an integral part of, you know? And so that there's like this whole welcoming scene, that there's still, you watch how hardcore is now, like, as mainstream as it could possibly ever imagine, practically. But there's got to still be all those shows. There's still got to be that scene for a ton of kids, I'm just not as connected to it. You know what I mean? And I don't think I should be necessarily. You know what I mean? I mean, when I was getting into hardcore and stuff, I probably wouldn't have been as into it going to see, like dudes my age playing. You know what I mean? I'm fucking so thankful and appreciative that we're still part of it, but like, you know what I mean? Hardcore's crazy that way. That like the people who started it are still doing it and are still like actively involved in the whole thing. I can't think of any other musical scene that really stays that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's more
Eh,
comparable to a religion that way too, though, right? Because it's like a set of values, it's like a worldview. It's so much deeper than like I've got friends that were very into rave, and I don't mean to undercut them, but like it's not the same thing. Like their involvement with it, and like, and it's yeah, like it is an amazing time where hardcore is bigger than it's ever been,
yeah, and still, yeah,
and we also it all feels like everything is like happening at once. Like like you're saying, there's not like it's very like in the now. Like new bands and older bands are playing together. It's not
yep.
like a retro thing for people.
Yeah, no, and I think the idea of like uh, you know, social commentary and like actual like, not fucking sugary bullshit lyrics, that you're actually saying something, and that sort of like mission of that part of hardcore has you know been has been protected, and that's still going on. It might not be like, it's still part of the nucleus, is that we're not just singing about bullshit. You know what I mean? We're not just, that there is content to what we're saying. um and I think being able to like, keep that part of it alive in the midst of like having hardcore essentially just be like as big as any other, kind of music now. That's pretty fucking special. um yeah, I mean, that's great. I think, yeah, I mean, you can't stop some of these massive changes from happening. And again, it's, these things are popular, and they get bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's like you can't blame, it's like, of course, like it makes sense that you're going to like it because it's fucking good.
But I ask you, Luke, who's singing about the death of Union Carbide right now?
Exactly. So probably the shows that I fucking don't know about, that'll be maybe the next thing. I don't know, man. Those fucking Union Carbide guys, man. We had, oh my gosh, that was quite a band.
This
I
has
still
been.
remember,
Oh, go on, sorry.
what? Here, the last
No,
one
please.
is, I still remember our last that LAB show, the last it's like we're getting to the end of the set, and we're playing, and it's basically a fucking train wreck, and I'm just waiting for the end of it so I can sort of like, this is going to be done, and now I'm starting my new life in GB and all this stuff, and we've got one more song to do, and it's like, do we either play fucking a cover of Cause for Alarm, United Races, or do we play Death by Union Carbide? Dude, the CFA song. Okay, Union Carbide. Okay. Yeah, fucking, I'm so glad we're done.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Like it could have ended on such a fucking cool note.
Uh, I did want to ask you about the infamous fight with the bootlegger story. I heard that when you guys were in England, that there was a bootlegger at a GB show, and then you guys confronted them, and then they trashed.
Oh, I think I know what you're are you I don't think, no, that never happened. Are you talking about Manchester maybe?
Yeah,
I think Manchester's got a very big like bootlegging scene of and they're very, and I think it's pretty organized. No, when we were there, uh I think it
I think it was Leeds
I,
University,
I
actually.
think I think something happened maybe with when Civ was there, or Sick of It All was there or something. We never really, I think when we were there were guys selling our stuff outside, and I think somebody with us like I think somebody with us came upstairs and they were like, "Hey, like there's fucking dudes outside selling fucking GB shit. Like, can I like I should tell them? I told them to, should I tell them to stop? Can't remember exactly what happened. Someone was like, "No, like no, like that's what goes on here." Because I think the other dudes that got into it, it got like I think it got really fucking gnarly. I don't know the story.
Yeah, Civ told me that story actually. Now that I think about it, because I when we were there with the Gallows on tour, there was bootleggers, and they're like, "Nope, do not go near them." But
Yeah.
they said Gorilla Biscuits. They must have meant Civ had gotten to it with them, and there was like a huge fucking nightmare. So don't just eat the
I don't
loss.
know. This might surprise you, but Gorilla Biscuits, we've never been like, no one's ever been scared to fight Gorilla Biscuits. I mean, generally speaking,
I also could see
although
I could see Gorilla Biscuits
although
also not caring too. You guys being like, fuck it.
we did the only time we got in one thing ever, in Glasgow, like 20 years ago, and it got a little live, but that's the only time I think as a band anything is, and mean, mean meanwhile, mind you, while like like some of the dudes in the band are like getting into it, Walter's grabbing the mic going, "Come on everybody, strawberry shortcake, like let's chill out." But
Well, Gorilla Biscuits walk so fucked up you cower in your footsteps. Because
exactly. People fucking part. We part the seas. No, this is not to. We're just. I mean, not all of us. I mean, we're not total daisies, man.
uh, were you kind of aware of how big Start Today was becoming as a record?
No, no, that all like the explosion of the band, like after we got back together and did that first like tour was that was really really fucking surprising. No, I mean, I guess I kind of like on my radar people talking about it, but as far as like really like no, the level of sort of like how people were, talking about it and all that. No, that was not either expected or, anything like that. Um yeah, it was kind of surprised that once we started playing again, that things just kind of fucking like it was like a rocket, man. Like we just took off, you know what I mean? And like it was almost like instead of like we almost kind of like skipped a bunch of chapters and we like got back together and we're already like on this fucking different tier like right away. I don't know. I think maybe just having that record came out, we kind of broke up very soon after the record came out. So never really played on it. I'm not sure. I'm
I
not sure why all that went down.
That reunion was my Oasis reunion. Like I was
I love it.
so excited, and
Yeah,
I think there was like a whole generation of kids that were just that record was so defining for that were just
that's
ready
great.
to hear it live.
Yeah, oh, dude. I can speak only, for myself, probably for everybody in the band too. But no, that tour, that first like tour coming back was really special. You know what I mean? I mean, that whole first year of doing stuff was like, you know, um, I think at that point there were a lot of bands that had broken up, but I don't think anybody had really like gotten back together at that point. I think we were one of the first bands, or I don't know, to like start playing again. Um, and so it was like for like a year straight. And I'd been pretty like I mean I'd been living in Austin, so I was kind of involved in stuff, but like still like the people that were coming out to all the shows that we were playing again were people like it was like every fucking show for like a year straight. You're seeing people you hadn't seen in 20, 25, like in so long, like all the time. And yeah, it was amazing, man. You know?
What were your thoughts when Fall Out Boy covered Start Today?
Uh I guess it's cool. Like I don't it's like I mean it's pretty neat. You know what I mean? Like I don't I mean Fallout Boy, I mean they're like, they're like kids. I mean, they happen to get really big, so like, it didn't seem like that much of a stretch. And I think it's pretty. It was, in some ways, it's kind of cool. I think it was the first time it was like, hey, like, like somebody talking to you, like that's I've heard of your band because of this. Like, wow, that's awkward, but okay.
Well, it's
uh,
funny that those video games at a time when
I
there's no music
yeah.
videos, there's no radio for this kind of music. Like so many people come on this podcast that got into punk through Tony Hawk games.
Yeah, dude, I like that entire world of like how big video games and music became like that like that like that is another world to me. I have no like the like having that thing on or the Tony Hawk thing or whatever uh probably did a lot for the band, but I it's so separate. Like I don't have any like I have no fucking relation to it, and I don't really play Tony Hawk game. You know what I mean? It's like I'm not a video game guy
Yeah,
really, or
yeah.
not. I mean, I used to be like arcade game guy, but
That skiing game.
so no, I was shit. Don't get me started on fucking old video games. No, the skiing game was whack. Like Miss Pac-Man, Pac-Mania, Joust, Galaga. Yeah, no, so I think probably yeah, it probably did. I don't know. I didn't the Fallout Boy thing I mean cool. I mean, I don't know the guys. I like I mean catchy band, good band. I know that they all seem like good dudes from, what I can kind of glean off of stuff.
All straight edge hardcore
Um,
kids
yeah, 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 yeah. So
originally.
yeah,
I don't
I
think there's
mean
many straight edges left in the band,
yeah,
but
I mean cool.
yeah.
I don't think there's anything. I don't. I mean, yeah. I mean, I mean, I love what when bands do cover songs. It's obvious that you know to do a cover song of a band, you gotta really fucking like the band. You know, it's I think you know what I mean. So it's like here's a fucking band that people that like our band that are covering our song and
Well, I love the pop cultural web that Gorilla Biscuits kind of weaves, where you have like Steve Aoki with a Gorilla Biscuits back tattoo, bootlegging. Walter sings the hits. You've got you've got the dudes from Sun O, like being Gorilla Biscuits fans. You've got
yeah.
like
We for whatever reason, I mean, I think it's a combination of uh there's definitely a little bit of a cult element to the band. You know what I mean? That kind of like there definitely I think I've definitely come across people who like kind of are into Gorilla Biscuits, but don't really know the band or have any idea, they're not really into the music necessarily. It's like kind of like, I mean, the image, the logos, that stuff is really kind of like made its way around the world by
mhm.
this point. There's a lot of people who will reference us. And so it's kind of like we've kind of like been sprinkled around the world in this sort of strange way that's like, you know, uh not just like there's kind of just like a pitchy thing to the band apart from the actual band and the playing and all that, you know what I mean?
But then also with the playing, it's spread around the world. Like I bet everywhere in the world that there's a hardcore scene, there has been a Gorilla Biscuits song covered. Like
I've seen I know I've seen a lot.
I've
Yeah,
seen a lot.
I've seen like I've seen a lot of Big Mouth covers from like fucking the North Pole and shit like that. And yeah, I mean I love that. It's great. It's very like I mean, what do you say about that stuff? It's very like uh I mean, what a trip! Like, what a trip! What a trip! Like, to go back to like, oh my God, like hardcore. What's this? I want to do this. You know what I mean? Like looking at these records to all of this, to all of a sudden 40 years later, like, people are doing that with what you've done. And that is like, you know, fucking mission accomplished. Like I wanted to be, you know, completely a part of this scene, and I am,
Well, and
you know.
I think it speaks to what you said earlier. Like we need to redefine success and like what success means, and like this is success. Like making art and having people respond to it everywhere is.
Oh, big time. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, talking about a fucking like now like existential issue, like, like how do you define success? You know what I mean? Like, it's like how do you stay happy? You know what I mean? How do you operate in the world that's like, success is fluid, and I think that yeah, I mean, like to me, I mean, yeah, it's what are you going, what are you going for? You know, what's your idea? Like exactly like you said, what's your idea of success? You know what I mean? And I think for a lot of people who got involved in like early punk and hardcore and stuff, that idea of like success on a more, not necessarily mainstream level, but even just more of a common level, like what does the average, fucking human consider to be successful? Like a lot of fucking people getting into it at that point, like, that notion, even that notion of fucking moderate average success is like, that's not on the table, not even looking at that. You know what I mean? You're operating within this kind of like your own new world you've kind of created, and like you're, going back to as much as possible and wanting to be successful in there. So, however many years later, seeing that you've put all this time and everything into something, without that motive of success, and then actually gaining this kind of other level success through it is pretty like, can be both, it can be everything. It can be disorienting, it can be humbling, it can be, really rewarding. Um, I mean, a lot of stuff. It can also be like, I think a fucking catalyst for like, oh fuck, I want to do more, So um, and your ideas of, like what you're setting out to do as far as success goes within this scene, they probably change as it goes, Um, I mean, you guys do well. I mean, the kind of things you're offered as a successful band within the hardcore scene now are fucking miles different now than what they used to be. You know what I mean? Um, but I think that like it's good to remind yourself of sort of it's good to remind yourself of your initial uh motivations, and uh like your sort of mindset, and like your state of, you know your sort of like physical and mental state, where when you're getting into these things, seeing what you want, and like and then being able to kind of like pause and appreciate, sort of like, take stock of it and inventory. um and I think within, it's like, I personally, I would love to continue playing and, push, all the music that I'm doing and everything. And so like I'll always, there's always more to do, but like it's nice to be able to like, yeah, like I think this has been like so far so good.
Well, however you define success, Luke, this podcast has been a massive one by my definition. So anytime you want to come back on here and talk about
I
anything, you are always welcome.
I thank you, Damien. I spend I spend an inordinate amount of time up here in Vermont, communing with no one but my dog and the trees and the woods and stuff. So eventually, I'll get sometimes when I get rolling, I get a little long winded and lose my train of thought. So I appreciate your sort of like your wide berth.